it's so important to really pair people with the products and the services that are going to give them a meaningful result and worry about the 10-year relationship, not the 10-minute relationship. I think we talked about there's not one silver bullet, right, that makes a service business successful. I mean, a service business is a lot of small decisions being made consistently well. The decision that I had was, do I want to be the national brand leader or not? Or do I want to be a regional brand that somebody buys someday?
Zenoti presents Growth Diaries, the fascinating stories behind the best brands in beauty, wellness, and fitness.
Some founders build companies and others help shape the entire industry. Lynn Heublein is one of those rare few. After a successful career in tech and much needed sabbatical, Lynn teamed up with a Stanford plastic surgeon to launch SkinSpirit in 2003. Before MedSpa was even a concept, what started with one clinic and a 600,000 SBA loan is now the nation's leading provider of Botox and fillers with over 50 locations and backing from firms like KKR. Lynn brings her P&G roots and Silicon Valley grit into everything she does, from investing in talent and training to build a female-led company that empowers both clients and team members. Welcome to Growth Diaries, Lynn, and thanks for making the time for joining.
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
Great. So before we get started into the SkinSpirit journey, I really want you to share a little bit about your journey before SkinSpirit. What were you doing and your background? Because I know you were not in the industry.
Right, yeah. Well, I started my career actually in consumer marketing with Procter & Gamble, and I was in brand management there. And then I came out to the Bay Area to go to business school and at Stanford. And of course, that's a very tech, heavy place. And when I got out of business school, I ended up getting into the tech category. Actually, I got into it through gaming software. So I could use my consumer products background, in gaming software, and ended up starting a company with some engineers from Apple in online gaming in 1994. So we were really too early. We had a really, really great concept, but we kind of timed the market a little early. That company, we were able to create some low latency software that was valuable and to an internet telephony company. And so we ended up, even though the gaming part of it didn't reach its full potential, we were able to sell the company for that software that we had developed.
Great.
Yeah.
So I guess it's your P&G background and the branding which makes SkinSpirit like a very beautifully designed brand, at least some of it.
I think that I learned, well, you know what, when we sold the company and the company we sold it to went public. So it was a good outcome, even though we, had made some mistakes. But, when I had finished that process, I realized that I had kind of missed the consumer side of things. And so I took some time off, and then I just, by chance got to be friends with Dr. Business, who's a Stanford trained plastic surgeon. And he started educating me about all the things that were coming down the pipe. And, he just said, well, what do you think? And kind of pitched me on, would you be willing to do this? Because I was an entrepreneur just kind of with no company at that point. And I wasn't really ready to go back into a, kind of a tech startup situation again. So we started one location in we got together in 2002 and we launched our first location in 2003.
Cool. So that was like really early before the whole med spa trend started unfolding. In those days, it would have been bold to you to foresee that this could be a big business.
Yeah, Botox was only approved for cosmetic purposes in 2002. So I started uh, playing around with that with Dr. Business and the nurse in his office. Uh, and yes, so before Botox came on the market, really the majority of the businesses in aesthetics was in laser hair removal. So there were laser hair removal concepts, but they didn't do very well. So a lot of them had, came and gone and, went out of business. So really focusing on facial rejuvenation, which is what we did, we were very, very early in the category. And I did use my branding background to help kind of create the strategy for SkinSpirit, really try to understand what the consumer, was looking for, how to position it, how to overcome objections. The biggest issue in the beginning was people were afraid of Botox.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it played out well that you were one of I presume almost first ones to go and start this kind of a business and
Yeah, one of the first to really create this kind of consumer focused way to deliver medical aesthetics.
yeah.
Right. So very high touch. I recruited people from Nordstrom to help, run the first location. And so our customer service culture was established really early on, and that really made a difference. But our customers were really discerning because we started in Palo Alto, so we were in heart of Silicon Valley. So we had very, very smart, very discerning clients. And so it was great for us to start here where people's expectations are high to really, create that client experience that we've been able to now take across the country.
So I think, given your whole business background, and it's rare, like you started a category very early, and just many times people who are the first ones to start a category aren't necessarily the ones who end up being the leading
Well, that's
business.
what happened to me in the online gaming business. Yes, I understand. The thing that's different, obviously, about what we were doing is we didn't have to have a network effect to be successful, right? So you could have one location be successful, and it may not be a big business, but it's a successful business. And so we were pretty. We moved pretty slowly. We only had one location for 5 years, so we really learned the client experience, and we also were timing the market because we were so early in the market that not very many people were interested. And I can tell you, there was no investor interest, which is so different than today.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So since you started early and you just said you were in a neighborhood which has very discerning customers, and I know you had some time to mature your business. Yeah, I know you've been very obsessed about your customer journey, and that's the number one priority of what their experience is. Maybe you should expand on how you made the customer journey a priority and, kind of the experience for your customers.
Well, a lot of times I say don't market to yourself to people because you might have some you might make some mistakes because assume things about yourself and that the customer are the same. But I was that very discerning customer, and also our target. And so, from the very beginning, I built the client experience for what I would want, which is very knowledgeable staff. We're on time, we're competent, we're managing expectations and over delivering. we're following up and really giving people what they don't usually get out on the market, which is, really great customer service is a simple concept, but it's a difficult one to execute. But when you do, the customer is very loyal because it's not common. It really isn't. And we provide an excellent customer service for everyone. We create an excellent customer service for a secretary, to a CEO, to a billionaire philanthropist. We're not snobby. We provide excellent service to everyone.
Great. And I think I love your concept of saying you should set expectations right. Like many people tend to oversell what the outcome
That's right.
might
That's
be.
right. That's right. I really have to credit my business partner and medical director, Dr. Visness. He is incredibly intelligent and very discerning. And so one of the services that we provide, and again, this is something that I would want, is what actually works, right? What actually works? What actually works for you? Because everybody's different, right? So what works for 20% of the population might not work for, another 40% of the population or 80% of the population. And so it's so important to really pair people with the products and the services that are going to give them a meaningful result and not and worry about the 10-year relationship, not the 10-minute relationship. And we train our staff, and our staff have very high integrity. If somebody doesn't need something, don't do it, right? Even if they ask, even if they're pushing, right? You're the medical expert and you really should be, the one who's dictating that. And I think we've had a lot of loyalty because I think our customers know that one, we're only curating products that we've tested that we think really provide a meaningful consumer value. And then we are also only suggesting those for people who we think will get a meaningful result.
And I think especially in the kind of med spa evolved maturing space, that kind of principles would have been very important because, otherwise, it's people don't know what to expect. And this is a new category kind of stuff. So what you did, in fact, I have first-hand proof, by the way, I forgot to mention this to you. My wife actually went to your store a few years ago, I think for some kind of a laser treatment or something. And she has a different skin tone. And they said, look, we normally handle this kind of skin tone. We are a little concerned about will we be successful or not? So they actually sent her back rather than sell her anything. And initially she was like, hey, they just feel they can't do my job. But your staff clearly had the integrity to say,
Right,
don't just go after the money kind of stuff.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that made her go back later after a couple of years when she was looking for something else.
That's right. That's
She
right.
came to you guys.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, we are really looking for a long-term relationship with our clients and creating that trust. And that's what has made our business successful, is playing that long game. Because people who are really, pushing something and then people aren't satisfied or they're over-promising, those people are not going to refer that business, right, to their friends, which is the key to success in this category.
Yeah.
Is that client referral.
Client referral, definitely. I think that's a good point that I think I've seen most of the successful, service industries are been based on referrals, and especially so in the med spa, the skin care kind of space. Yeah,
Definitely.
right.
Absolutely.
So to achieve this kind of customer care and journey and passion around it, I know you have to have a meaningful obsession around employees and what kind of a culture you're building. So how have you been able to, build the right culture? How have you approached this whole thing with employees?
Well, it's multifactorial. I mean, the first is, we like I said, we had one location for 5 years, and so we developed a culture and a way of treating both clients and staff that I think has also served us well as we've grown. But you have to find the right person first, right? You have to find somebody who shares your values as an organization. You have to find somebody who can absorb the training that we're going to provide and can absorb change in the category because the treatments and services change over time, right? So you need somebody who's got that capability to learn and then continue to learn, right? Shares our values in terms of the customer experience, is willing to play the long game. And then, so if you find the right person and then you train them, then you have to give them the kind of customer experience as well that they need, right? And so if you have those very talented people, what you need to do is provide them with a lot of autonomy. And I think that our staff really appreciate that we're playing the long game with the client so that they can recommend in confidence without, you know, pressure, to sell a certain thing or, not sell something. And so, we really look at the relationship with our staff similarly to how we look at our relationship with our client, in that we're really trying to understand their needs, because retention of our staff is like retention of our clients.
Great, great. And I think I like the fact that you said, I think you look more for the values the person has when you're hiring versus the skills, because the skills you can train as long as they're trainable, but ensuring the culturally they have
That's
the right
right.
values
Yep.
is more important.
There have been people who are experts in medical aesthetics, but not good culture fit, because we're focused on the client, we're focused on the team, we're focused on the outcome, and there are people in this category who are very focused, on themselves. I don't think that's the majority, but there are
So,
definitely.
so today, in terms of as you've grown, of course, you have a lot more employees. And how have you come up with a model of how you help them to know how they are performing in terms of metrics, numbers? Because there's so many, you can't stay in touch with everyone. Have you come with a model which works for you to say, yes, I think my staff knows if they're doing well or not doing well, and I'm being very fair and transparent?
Hmm. Yeah, so obviously we collect a lot of data. We get a lot of data from Zenoti. And so we've developed dashboards for all of our providers, and we have a process where we review that information with them. We have a lot of benchmarking, right? So we know the things that can help improve a practice. And so we have coaching that's distributed through our medical ops team to help make sure that people are getting that information and that feedback. So they're getting it from their medical ops team. And then they're also getting that feedback also from their in the field operations team. So there's two mechanisms for that. And both of those organizations report to me.
Okay.
So I work with those leaders to make sure that the cultural, values that we have are in the senior leadership as well. That's the other big issue, right?
Mhm.
Is to scale, you have to have people who are, again, not just the providers, but the managers running the business, who are like-minded, right? Who are maniacal about the client experience and the employee experience.
Yeah. I think if you have the right kind of managers, then that kind of maybe percolates downward as you scale in terms of that.
It does, and you can also see it when you don't get it right as well, right? So part of the challenge is, you can't bat 1,000. So if somebody does come in that's not a good fit or doesn't have the talent to, kind of keep that flame alive, then you have to, be willing to make a move.
So your staff also gets transparency in terms of their metrics and performance in
Mm.
terms of data, so they know how they're doing relative to each other and all that. Okay.
Yes, 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 yes. We're very data driven. So
Because I'm a firm
from
believer that
from the very beginning.
the transparency helps among people with the data versus
Absolutely, absolutely. But we don't push what we what the other thing that we do with our providers is, different providers have different ambitions, right? And so we work with our providers individually as to what is their ambition,
Yeah.
right? Do they want to specialize in something? Do they want to be the biggest, injector in San Francisco or Seattle? Like, there's different things. Some people might want to have a smaller practice. Some people want to have a bigger practice. Some people want to be Instagram stars. Some people want to, fly under the radar. And we have a formula for all those different temperaments.
Great.
Yeah.
I've actually, that's awesome to hear because I've seen that in other businesses too, where they feel like you meet the employee where they are, both in terms of their life stage, like, as they, let's say they become moms,
That's
have
right.
kids to take care of,
Absolutely.
their priorities change.
Right.
You're to be present to it and support.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I decided to start the company, because I just wasn't ready to go back into that high tech startup environment, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, and wanted a little bit more balance, and purpose in the thing that I was providing, to the client. And I think that our workforce is 95% female. So, or it's in the 90s, if it's between 90 and 95%. And we, those women have the same issues that I did, right? Is that they want to be moms, or, they have other priorities in life, and we need to balance that out. And so we do have people who have worked full time, and they become moms, and they work part time, and then their kids get older and they add more time. And we are committed to that life cycle with people, because it's good business, and it's a great value to have as an organization if you're trying to attract very talented women, which we are. Which we are.
Yeah, I'm sure you've touched a lot of women's lives because the industry has been very vibrant. I'm sure
Yes,
they have good financial outcomes individually and
that's right.
in terms of the
Right.
impact you're having.
That's right. That's right.
Great.
Yeah, no, it's been great. We've created very, hundreds of thousands of happy, satisfied clients, and, hundreds of amazing, careers.
Great. And you have, I recollect, you have a lot of people who've been with you from a
Very.
tenure perspective
Yeah.
very long, right?
Yes,
So
we do. We do. We have very high retention. Our annual employee retention is bounces between 91 and 95%. It's unheard of, but
in a service industry, it's very,
yeah,
even I don't have that under my software company.
yes. But we're maniacal about it, right? Because we are looking at the customer experience, and we're also looking at the employee experience. And when we find good people, we really try to keep them.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, I've always believer that when you grow your business, you provide a lot of growth opportunity for your team. Your business is completely like company owned, not like franchise.
That's right.
So with your growth, I guess there has been a lot of opportunity for early employees to become other leaders. And
There have definitely there definitely have, and that's super rewarding to see, right? Because it's nice. I love to mentor people, so seeing people kind of rise in the organization is great. And then I really feel like we're very even with our size. I'm a entrepreneur at heart. I still feel like we're a very entrepreneurial organization. So if you have an idea that can improve the company, make us money, have us do better, I mean, there's unlimited potential, honestly. And I try to help people with that mindset, because too many people, I think, are self-limiting, right? And I try to really help them go, no, you know what? If you want to, you can make anything happen.
so yeah,
With an ethical boundary, obviously, right?
but it's good that you keep the employee management, as you said, aspects to reporting to you, and you're directly involved and not giving it off to someone and
Right.
focus just on revenue and numbers, because those things, I think you have
Right.
other leaders do.
Well, we are getting our results through people, so you can't decouple them.
Good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. The beauty, wellness, and fitness industries touch our lives like no other industry does. And every brand that has succeeded in this industry has a wonderful story behind it. We have stories that engage, stories that we can learn from, stories that inspire all of us. And I'm here to bring you these stories and introduce you to the wonderful people behind these brands. So if you're enjoying this, do press like and hit the bell icon to subscribe, so you'll be the first to know when a new episode comes in. So you started, as you said, 5 years, you had single store, but today, of course, you're like, we're over 50 stores. Yeah, over 54 stores. and still growing. And you're in some of the great locations like Nordstrom and all these partnerships. Amazing. But when did your growth really explode? Because I know you didn't raise capital early on. When did you choose to raise capital? I want you to share your journey of figuring out when to raise and what.
Right. Well, so like I said, in the early days, I thought about raising capital, but nobody was interested at all. And then I wasn't, and then, the category was pretty wide open. It was very, it was all kind of mom and pop. And we were, at 8 locations that we had grown 8 locations organically, with no institutional capital. Um, what started happening is that I was just getting a call. I mean, it began in, maybe in 2015, 2016. I was getting a call every quarter, and then I was getting it, for a year, and then I was getting a call every month, and then I was getting multiple calls a week from private equity firms, right? Because they had all of a sudden, they had rolled up, MedDerm, they've rolled up vet, and they rolled up dental, and now they're looking for what's the next big thing. And the category did start to take off, because it's a great service, it's a great product. So anyways, I was getting all these calls. My son was older, he was going into high school, and he didn't need me as much. And I recognized the signs from when I was in tech, right? And I knew that the category was going to get funded. So I had to make a decision of, well, I like not having to answer to anybody, but also it is going to limit my growth, because we were growing through debt and cash flow, right? And you can only grow so fast, and then it's harder to attract really, top people, right? And so I found a private equity firm that I liked, that would, do the deal on terms that I found acceptable in terms of the amount of control. And it was a minority stake. And so that closed right at the end of 2018. It was actually fortunate timing, because, of course, a year later, COVID was upon us, and we had a very strong balance sheet, because we put some money on the balance sheet to, fuel our growth. And we were able to be very strategic through COVID. So we didn't let anybody go. And we slowed down our planned pace of growth, but we still grew in terms of locations. And a lot of people realized that, medical aesthetics there were COVID winners and losers. Medical aesthetic was a COVID winner. And so we just kind of rode that wave with capital in the bank, no debt. And, we really, our expansion really accelerated going into COVID and then coming out of COVID.
Yeah, they say when adverse times come like COVID, they turn out to be the best times for people who are willing to go out there and play the game very well, because you suddenly have you have a way to demonstrate that you can excel in execution relative to the others, who are
Well, the
there.
demand was so high too. But then, what happened is that demand has brought in a lot of competition,
Yeah.
and a lot of private equity investment, which has had its own uh, implications for the category. Some good, some not good.
So I think it's important to recognize, I guess, what you did, which is you could have continued to grow your business. You were running it, you got to 8 locations, you could keep bootstrapping.
Yeah, we could have
But
grown a location
but
or
you have
two.
to see that the industry trend is happening, that if you don't raise capital, then someone else is going to raise. So knowing the inflection point of the industry and saying, hey, now is the right time is an important thing for an entrepreneur.
It is. It's very important, and I think I learned that through some of my early entrepreneurship. Not timing the market right, and waiting. It was good that we waited, because it was good that nobody would fund me, because I ended up owning more of the company, right? And when I did bring in investment, it was at a higher valuation, and there was a lot of competition for the deal. So I was able to do a better job negotiating terms that I was happy with. But yes, I, my, the realization that I came to was, okay, I know there's nothing that I can do to stop the money that's going to flow into this category. The decision that I had was, do I want to be the national brand leader or not? Or do I want to be a regional brand that somebody buys someday? And I just thought, we really are the best. We have been the number one client of Allergan for a really long time because it's a very fragmented category. We still are on the aesthetic side. And I just thought that our brand and our culture were the deserving combination to be that national brand. And so that was the opportunity that I would have not been able to have. I don't know. It all worked out. So I'm happy.
It's great to see that anyway. Good timing, and things worked out where your brand is now today a very beautiful brand. But if in terms of your growth, you started with one location, you said in
Mm.
Palo Alto. And as you pick these locations, typically, how do you go about selecting the locations? Because your first is a retail, like,
Well, so what we did before we brought in outside money is we did an analysis. So we hadn't, so I grew up in Seattle, and that's why I was attracted to, expand into the Seattle market. So we were in the Bay Area, and then we expanded into the Seattle market through an acquisition of a firm up there. And that was, a little bit of a test for me because I didn't know if, well, is this just successful in San Francisco? Is this concept just successful in San Francisco? And then, because I didn't know, is the Seattle consumer going to accept this? And then, what we found was that that they were. I picked the locations based on my local knowledge, right? So I was a true local entrepreneur. I knew the Bay Area. I grew up in Seattle. I knew Seattle, right? So I didn't have to do a lot of analysis to pick the locations because I just knew, right, based on my knowledge of the market. But what we did after that expansion is that we did an analysis of who are our customers, right? What is their demographic profile? And we evaluated it based on some, some Nielsen data, right? That does psychographic data. So we look at, what's our client base, and so we were able to discern, okay, we are over-indexing in these different, psychographic segments. And Nielsen at that time had 55 different psychographic segments, and we were really, really over-indexing in 6 of those 55. And so when we look at locations, and these databases have been updated over time, right? And we're constantly, evaluating our clients. Is there, are there changes over time? But we look at who is really sticky and who's really, a strong client, and then we look for those pockets in other parts of the country because they exist, right? So we're looking for that consumer who shares those values.
Cool. So that's very more scientific because
Hmm.
you have to pick the right neighborhoods,
Right.
areas.
That's
That
right.
you are not. Many businesses tend to say, "No, I'll just stick to San Francisco. I'll go to the Bay Area. I'll open here. I'll open here." But I think going to where your customers were was a smart
That's right.
location move.
Well, the other thing that was really interesting with COVID is that a lot of our customers moved. So, so one of our early markets outside of Seattle and the Bay Area was Austin. And we opened that in February of 2020. So like right before everything got shut down. And what I found there, before COVID and then even more so after COVID is, oh, I'm so happy that you opened in Austin because I was a client in Seattle or I was a client in Palo Alto and now I live in Austin. And so we've seen, this exodus from both Seattle and San Francisco and also just mixing across the country. But we have these advocates in these new markets for us when we open, which is really great.
And also within these neighborhoods, when you pick locations, you've tended to pick like more. I know in Seattle, you're in like U Village, you're at Bellevue Square Mall, you're in prime retail real estate? Is that?
Well, Bellevue Square is kind of an anomaly because we're not really in malls that much, but we're in lifestyle centers. So University Village, I would say, has a little bit different, different profile than Bellevue Square. But Bellevue is this unique market, right? Which you probably know because you live close to that, right? It's where Bellevue Square has been able to maintain its relevance as a mall where others haven't. So we like to go places where it fits in with people's lifestyles. So we're probably more interested in being close to a Pilates or a yoga studio or a hair salon or a grocery store than we are, say, in a mall. Yeah.
So that helps you with marketing. And I was going to get to
Right.
that, which says, hey, getting clients and finding new clients is hard, but I guess your strategy has always been being prime location. So, you,
We try to be we try to be convenient to our customers' lifestyle. Yeah. So and visible, right? And so people who are in medical office buildings, things like that, those aren't always on. I mean, that's a very fine way to build a business. It's less expensive real estate, but then you have to do other things to get to the clients. We just want it to be easy. I get my hair done, I get my nails done, I got my Botox, go to shopping.
yeah. So that's a good tip for everyone. I think it's worth spending the money in terms of having prime locations which fit into
The
that lifestyle of your
the thing about it is it's that higher cost, because it's a higher cost to open, it's a higher cost to operate. You have to you have to have some capital, right? It's not the scrappy way to do it. I mean, it can be scrappy, but you have to be prepared to have enough capital to cover the TIs, cover the rent for some period, because that high rent is gonna, make you unprofitable as you're ramping for some period of time, right?
yeah.
And then, but you have to have the capital to be able to continue to invest in that consumer acquisition journey. And then you have to have the right customer experience so that they convert,
Yeah.
right? So that you can make that pay.
Yeah. But I like the fact that it's not just about prime location, but it's where your customers' lifestyles are. It's like, understanding that. So I think you've done a good job of that has probably helped
Yeah.
you.
So, you know, fifth, I mean, certain parts of this, where there is prime real estate for retail, it might not be the best location, for a medical spa, right?
So since you started to now, how has your marketing evolved? When we first started, how did you get your new customers? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny because it definitely has evolved because there's a lot of different ways to source customers now, but it's still the same in that we have our largest source of new clients is customer referral. So the client experience is the number one marketing tool, and that can work for anybody, right? What's different now is that social media is social media, paid search, SEO. Those are the primary, ways that people are finding the business from a digital standpoint. Reviews are very important. It helps, a lot of. I mean, the journey for making a decision is multifaceted. So they may have walked by, right? They walk by on their way to a Pilates studio. Oh, that's SkinSpirit. They heard a friend. Oh, or they heard somebody. Oh, yeah, I love SkinSpirit. And then they go online and they do a search, and they see, what services we have, right? And then they go and they look at reviews, right? And they book, right? There's something on that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I remind a lot of business owners, the internet is your storefront. Even if they walk by, they're going to go to your
That's right.
website, Google, find your location, look at your reviews. And I love the fact that you're so clear that referrals is a great way to build business, because too many businesses spend a lot of money on marketing, which may not be required if their marketing is their referral and their experience in the store. So, so you actually, don't even say it's referrals, it's the customer experience, which is your number one market tool. So that's clarity for your staff to have that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, it's good. Well, and and we ask people for reviews, and we ask people for referrals, and we have referral programs, and so but our customers are happy to do it because they get a good experience, and we stand behind our work.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So, if you ever to ask you, okay, there's so many things, of course, which attribute to your success. I mean, in terms of the business background and being in time in the industry, but is there some trait or approach of principle that has helped you be successful in your business?
Well, I think that it has been helpful to. I mean, we're lucky, right? We are um, doing something that the customer wants, and we're doing it in a way that has a meaningful level of satisfaction for the customer. The tough thing in the category is, with all the investment that's come in the category, there's a lot of competition, and the barriers to entry are not super high, right? So there's not, I think we talked about, there's not one silver bullet, right? That makes a service business successful. I mean, a service business is a lot of small decisions being made consistently well.
Yeah.
And so what I really press upon my staff, and what's really important, for a service business, is you have to have a very well educated staff, right? So that you can delegate a lot of decisions to your staff, because you cannot create a rule for every situation. And I think that businesses that are too rigid and they don't give their staff the autonomy that they need to take care of a customer, with common sense, then those businesses struggle, and they can't scale.
Yeah, cool. I like your answer, which is this notion there's no silver bullet. I mean, even in my business recently, I was reflecting around it, and I realized, it takes a lot of small things which have to go right for the business to do well, not like one silver bullet and strategy
Right.
is going to
That's
solve.
right. And I think that the other thing is you have to be really honest
Yeah.
on what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your vulnerabilities, right?
Cool.
Yeah. And I think that the thing, one vulnerability, with scale, is that, you lose touch, right? So you gotta just work on that every day.
In a simple statement, why do you think a customer should choose SkinSpirit?
Well, I think that customers should choose SkinSpirit because they know that we will first select products and services that actually work, that they'll be with people who are trained to actually deliver those products and services in a safe way with a high level of effectiveness, so that the consumer will get value. And if anything does go wrong, we're going to stand behind it, and we have the skills to address, because while it's not a very dangerous service to get, it is a I mean, not everything we do is medical, but it is a medical service. And so you don't really want to put yourself in the hands of somebody who could, do something unsafe.
Cool. So actually, that brings me back to an important question, which is, see, this industry has been evolving so much. When technology, products, and I go to trade shows, there's new stuff all the time. How do you stay on top of all the new stuff and know what is relevant for your business?
Right. Well, that's a good question. Well, luckily, we have been able to recruit experts. So we have multiple physicians who are expert in the category. We have nurse practitioners, PAs, nurses who have become, through their efforts, nationally recognized trainers. We have relationships with all the major vendors. We go to all the industry conferences, and we have a network of people who are passionate about the category. So they're always out there seeing, and they're networking with their peers all the time. So our staff are, really in the thick of what is going on in the category, and really elite within the category. And so they're always bringing that information back. And then we have a medical advisory board, which is a group of doctors and, our leading providers, both on the medical side as well as the aesthetic side. And all of those new products are being funneled in to that medical advisory board. Then we will decide what we think, has a big opportunity. And because there's a lot of stuff that's kind of small and nichey, right? And then there's a lot of stuff that may have clinical evidence that supports its claims, but doesn't necessarily translate to a meaningful consumer benefit, right?
Yeah.
So something could say, stimulates collagen twice as much as blah, 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 but that doesn't really have a meaningful benefit to the consumer, even though the claim is true. There's a lot of that. And we really try to sort through that. So the best of those ideas, and then of course we're such a big, we're such a big, leader in this category that vendors will come to us too, right? So, because people want us to be a reference customer, but for the things that, kind of rise to the level of, meaningful result, big opportunity, for the customer, we'll test it.
Yeah. So I like your analogy, which is it can have clinical results.
Right.
Good advice for people would be make sure it has consumer benefits, which stands out
Yeah.
with where you
Yeah.
indulge in it. And while you have a medical advisory board, I think then it applies to other smaller businesses also saying, hey, align with somebody who's a technical expert. Who's
That's
an
right.
advisor.
That's right. And I think that's, I learned, working in tech, that business people need a CTO. Our medical director, my co-founder, he really plays that role. And now we've brought on more physicians who also have that very scientific background.
Growth Diaries is brought to you by Zenoti, the software trusted by over 30,000 salons, spas, med spas, and fitness studios.
So if somebody was starting off today as an entrepreneur in our industry, in the space overall, what would your advice be to them?
Well, my advice to any entrepreneur is is there a need, right? I mean, and how are you going to uniquely fill that need? Because if you're trying to do something me too, where there's a lot of people ahead of you, it's going to be very difficult. But I think that if you truly start from the consumer need, then and you can craft either a product or experience or a service around that, and you can do that better. You have to really think of how can I do that better?
Cool. That's a good point. And I think I do hear that where, it's like if somebody wants to be in software, they can't do what Zenoti did so many years ago. You would have a different approach and paradigm. Same way, your product and offering has to be unique. If you just do a me too, it probably won't work.
That's right. I mean, sometimes there's opportunities to leapfrog, right? Because businesses that are established are so wed to their revenue model and their customer base that they can, there is disruption, possibilities as well, right? Because it's hard to pivot, right? When you're, 90% of my revenue is coming from here and I got to spend all this money, to generate 10%, but the future is that, right? So those are the other opportunities where you can see, can I disrupt, or is the trend, are people, stuck in their model?
Yeah. Is there a certain business book or any other book that has been instrumental and helpful for you and reflect, in your journey?
You know what? I'm not really a business book person, honestly. I read a ton, so I do read a lot. So I do think that being informed is extremely important. I think that a lot of business books are valuable, but what I find in business books is like I'll read them, but I'll skim them because usually the first chapter has the insight, and then every other chapter is the same thing.
Yeah. Great. But I think it marries with your viewpoint that it's a lot of small things that helps people be successful. There isn't a silver bullet that a book is going to give you.
I think the other thing is that you also have to play to your strengths, right? The way I lead is different from the way you lead. The way, some of my senior leaders lead is different from me. And that's okay,
Yeah.
right? It's okay.
Cool. Great. Is there a company or in the industry, and not necessarily in the industry also, that you admire and look up to, saying,
Yeah, I really love the company that I came from. I really loved Procter and Gamble. It was a great company. Uh, the thing that I took away from Procter and Gamble that I really love, and we don't do this exclusively, is Procter and Gamble exclusively promotes from within. And so everybody who's at Procter came in at an entry level position.
oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what that requires is then you have to have massive employee development as part of that process, right? Because if you're only building people from the ground up and not bringing somebody in laterally, you have to really, invest in your people. And I think that has been a long lived, value that I've been able to bring. Now I do bring people in. I don't, not everybody, but I do really try to grow those people as much as possible.
Cool. Great. Nice idea. I should think about it for my company too. Um, so obviously building a business takes a toll on you. You go through a whole, stages of life. Like you were saying, your daughter was at home, then she was in high school, and you had different. How do you keep your zen and things together for yourself?
Well, I really love building things. And so we got to build clinics and we got to build careers and we got to build a brand and we got to build more capabilities. And so really for me, it's about that growth. And the thing that keeps me excited is that, starting out as a consumer marketer at Procter, I think that we're on the cusp of being that national brand that I've had that vision for, decades, honestly. And that's what keeps me excited.
Great.
Yeah.
And on the wellness front, what kind of regimen or practices do you have?
Well, I am a big fan of neurotoxin. I get a lot of facials. I do micropenning. I do lasers. I use products at home. I'm very, one of the big trends in uh, the MedSpa category right now is regenerative medicine, which are products and services that help your skin generate its own collagen through, whatever mechanism, whether it's, energy or, some kind of, topical product. So, but I really, I make sure that I exercise and, I eat mostly good food and, spend time with my family, spend time with friends. Really try to keep it in balance.
Then you're also a lot of outdoor hiking and
Yeah.
kind of wellness as well.
Yeah.
Great, great. So
Yeah.
I guess it's
That's
great
one of
that,
the things that's great about Northern California.
yeah,
There's always good.
and Seattle too.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's great that you experience the services in the space, so you have a good perspective about what
Oh, yeah.
customers go
Oh,
through
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of it.
Yes. And when I get services at different locations, I want to experience it the same way. Right? That there's the same, that because there's a lot of issues, right? There's making the client comfortable, right? And we have developed a lot of techniques. And again, this is going back to all those little things. One, another reason why I would recommend SkinSpirit is because we have so much experience with trial and error and have been able to, kind of define these best, practices for making the client comfortable, right? Because some of these procedures, I mean, most of these procedures aren't that uncomfortable, but we just bend over backwards to just make it easy for people and not scary.
So thanks a lot, Lynn, for the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm sure your brand is going to be, as you said, that national brand, because not only is it beautifully designed, you are with all your business background and the capital, you're well set up,
Yeah.
and it's hard to go wrong at this stage in terms of this.
Well, you know what? Yeah, we're trying to stay true to our values, and I think that the other thing that one reason why I think we've also been successful is that it looks like we've grown fast, but really, if you think about our businesses over 20 years, it's not that fast, from an institutional investor standpoint. And my investors understand that, we can't lose the quality experience um, by virtue of growth because we can't get the growth if we can't maintain that consumer experience.
Correct.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, and I wish you the very best. And
Thank you. See you soon.
yeah, see you.
Growth Diaries is brought to you by Zenoti.